Guess I need to go down a little bit here.
Oh, lights. I don't think we need to go long with this one anyway, so maybe let's try to keep it at 40.
Good with that.
I mean, it's cancer, right? Like, we don't really need to.
Yeah. I don't, like I said before, I don't have enough expertise to be talking much on cancer. And it's one of those, like, very specific, isolated examples that, hey, cancer grows unchecked. You've said your whole point. We're just milking it and feeding it into Moloch. Okay, ready?
Yep.
GM, and welcome to Moloch Traps, our new podcast here at From A to Z. I'm ZFi. This is Zombie Shepherd, and we're excited to be bringing you this new show in collaboration with Bankless DAO and its audiovisual team. To be clear, opinions in this series expressed by either of us are our own opinions and do not reflect the opinions of Bankless DAO at large. This week, we will continue to study and discuss excerpts from the Meditations on Moloch essay written by Scott Alexander. The essay provides examples of multipolar traps and delves into various instances from history, biology, and economics to illustrate how competition often results in collective harm. In today's episode, we'll discuss cancer and the behaviors of such cells. Let's start with Alexander's words on this example. The human body is supposed to be made up of cells living harmoniously and pooling their resources for the greater good of the organism. If a cell defects from this equilibrium by investing resources into copying itself, it and its descendants will flourish, eventually outcompeting all the other cells and taking over the body, at which point it dies. Or the situation may repeat, with certain cancer cells defecting against the rest of the tumor, thus slowing down its growth and causing the tumor to stagnate. From a God's eye view, the best solution is all cells cooperating so that they don't all die. From within the system, cancerous cells will proliferate and outcompete the other, so that only the existence of the immune system keeps the natural incentive to turn cancerous in check. So for this one, it really kind of focuses on that unchecked exponential growth. It grows out of control in its own self-interested expansion with a complete disregard for the cells around it.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of directions we could think about this. A few that come to mind, and we can pull out any of these threads, but a few that came to mind for me when thinking about this is cancer is self-defection, as Alexander put. Like the cells have stopped working together with the rest of the body and have received a signal to duplicate themselves when they were not supposed to, and that cell basically just doesn't turn off and they keep going. And so that's kind of like a self-defection where even your own cells aren't cooperating for the greater good, and that seems very counterproductive to nature. But then there's also the idea of cancer and its place in the medical industry and its place in capitalism, and whether or not curing cancer is actually profitable, or if it's more profitable to allow people to be sick and just treat them for these things and not actually cure, or more importantly, not prevent. And then there's another, like a metaphor where you can think of individuals on the planet who eat up all of the resources, or corporations, or anything, any organizations or anything on this planet that end up eating up all the resources to the point that the rest of the planet and the rest of the people on the planet are suffering. And the idea that like those cancerous cells are actually the source of misery for the rest of the planet. So
That's yeah, quite the extrapolation there. But yeah, that drive for profit that we get from capitalism does tend to focus on band-aids and symptom treatment and things like that rather than investing in curing the disease itself.
right.
That's a very Malachian example for sure, because the system itself is feeding on profit at the expense of people continuing to die from cancer.
Well, it's why we're told that grocery stores throw food away instead of giving it to homeless people. Like, you know, if there are laws, which there aren't, but if there are laws saying that you can't give that food to homeless people, you would actually be hurting the bottom line of the grocery, because even though homeless and poor people can't afford to buy food, giving them food would ensure that they are not customers.
Right. Right. You're guaranteeing that you're losing those, maybe a couple $100 a week in sales from people who couldn't afford to spend it anyway.
Right. So, but yeah, I guess we'll start in the more direct approach of like the medical industry and how it's very not, there's a lot of money put into research for cancer cures, and it's, speculated that like there may actually be cures for cancers or preventions for cancers, but why would they at this point do that? Because it would really like curing it or getting rid of it would actually be really bad for business. Um, and then the other side of it being, well, if there is no cure for cancer and it's just literally something that happens and there's no, as far as we can tell, there's no preventing or stopping this thing, it still doesn't serve industries to tell us that. It wouldn't
Right.
be, hey, this is just the sun shines and people die. I don't know what to do about it. You know what I mean? But I mean, and then we can also relate that even to like what we know of like the American food industry, where like we are literally fed poisons, and then we wonder why we have illnesses, and
Right.
all of these things are because like it's more profitable to sell, you know, poison than it is to sell healthy food. Mostly because a lot of these poisons are in the form of pesticides or preservatives or other things that are good for,
Cheap ingredients.
yeah, it's good for shelf life, but it's bad for ingestion. And,
Yeah.
when you're trying to get a product to market, getting it on the shelf is more important than the people who consume it.
It's just another, like, circling back to the agriculture episode, it's another instance of us creating food products as a food commodity, as items, units of food commodity versus like units of nutrition, units of human sustenance and healthfulness.
Right.
All of that is excluded, and it's like dollars per calorie, ship it.
Right. And I mean, if you want to be even more direct with it, we have like, the tobacco industry who straight up covered up any association with lung cancer whatsoever and wanted to deny it altogether and be like, oh, smoking cigarettes is great for pregnant women. Definitely do that.
Calms you down. Bye, bye, bye.
But yeah, it's because like being honest about these things doesn't help your bottom line. So it's better to, obfuscate and bend the truth and act like everything's fine. And it's to the point now where like essentially you can't trust any labeling on anything almost. Like do your research into anything and you find that, hey, this isn't really what it says it is. It's actually not owned by the people that said that owned it. There's a TikTok channel that actually goes through and like will take pictures in a grocery market and then show you like based on shareholders who actually owns this like aisle of salad dressings. Is this really mom and pop salad dressing, or is it like, you know, is it big farm salad dressing? And a lot of the time it's big. Yeah. It's
Pause for a
really,
sec.
yeah.
Beat it. I'm not having it.
So yeah, it's when the same companies own everything and everybody's just trying to please the shareholders, it's not in anyone's best interest to think about healthy food or access to medicine or any of these things. And especially because if people actually did things preventative, then they wouldn't need the medicine. And the medicine's more profitable than the food. So getting people
Right.
sick with the food is actually really, it's actually like a trail straight to the hospital, you know?
Which is how it's designed. Intentionally or not, that's how the system is designed. Those are the incentives that we have aligned
Right.
in our current system.
From within the
Another thing
system.
that we came across, horrible system. Another thing we came across in the research is a lot of the funding and research and grants and the before you even get to the R&D, the ideation stages of finding solutions for cancer, a lot of that stuff is incentivized again for all the wrong things. We want to get these articles published. We want to get our funding. We're going to do the things that check the boxes we want with priority over things that are actually going to solve the cancer problem.
Right.
Because it might be effective. Whatever you're working on or the idea that you've come up with may be an effective solution, but it's not as profitable, or it is less likely to get published and peer reviewed because it's not interesting. The wrong
That's a big
incentives are
one.
in place.
Yeah, I mean, it's even like that's throughout the entire scientific industry
Oh, for
and
sure.
journal.
For sure.
Because, for instance, if you work for LSU as a scientist or in the agriculture department, well, then you're getting funded by Shell and Monsanto. So, like, are you going to have a lot of studies and funds devoted to like proving that these pesticides cause cancer in babies or whatever? Like,
Probably not.
like, or yeah, like, cancer in babies is a jump. I meant more like like birth defects and stuff like that. Like, you're not going to do a study that says that these particular pesticides cause birth defects or they
Probably
cause
not.
cancer long term or whatever. Like, it's not going to be popular. It's not going to, even if you're like a gung-ho student that's all about this stuff and you want to, well, guess what, you're not going to get the grants. You're not going to get the money to keep doing that work because you're not on the team.
Or you've already gotten the money to do the work, and you've chosen this season, this year, this school year, this research period to use some of that money to do these exact things that you're talking about. And then your funders, the Shells and the Exxons and the Monsantos, are like, probably not getting paid next year. We don't approve of that. And now you're living in this fear of having your existing funding revoked in the future.
Right.
In addition to grinding your whatever studies to align with securing funding now.
Right. And it's really what goes, the education system, science, and obviously politics is all about this stuff. You have to toe the line or you're just not going to be able to eat. And that's the sad part of it, is that, like, if there are no studies done on things, then there's no way to prove anything. And so yeah, that's a really good point you bring up. It leads to not even looking towards preventative stuff, like, and especially the other part of it is the high specialization. So if your field and your particular like thing is trying to, you know connect food to cancer, or more importantly to figure out what's causing cancer, and you're looking for certain genetic things, or you're looking for environmental things, but you're not in any way related to like dietitians or food studies or any holistic living type of stuff, and you have an aversion even to that type of knowledge, then you're not going to even think about, you're going to be always thinking about cures for cancer and how do I fix the thing that's already happening, rather than, oh, wait, can we prevent this thing by better eating and by maybe people not drinking tap water that's been poisoned by fossil fuels and other things. Like, actually, there's a way we could do, but it's not my job, is what it comes down to. Specialization means that this isn't my job. It's not my field of study. I don't think about it. And it would take teams of multiple people, like different fields of study coming together to work across and find things within their data or be looking for certain data sets, creating those experiments. But
trying to observe the systems in which cancer operates in order to work with or against them in particular ways.
right.
It ties it back into the agriculture episode again. You know, agriculture itself, the idea of working with the land to produce food, isn't necessarily flawed, broken, or bad. How we're doing it isn't ideal. And we have opportunities to, now that we know the system of soil health and ecosystems and things like that, we have the ability to work within the system, similar to cancer or other medical
That's a
treatments.
really good point, because basically the way we do farming, we are a cancer to the
We're
planet.
treating the symptoms. Yeah.
No,
Put
no,
fertilizer on
no.
it.
Well, not just that, but we are actually making the earth sick where we farm. The earth becomes
That
depleted
is
and we
also
have to
true.
keep pumping chemicals and nutrients into it because the soil is
And
literally
poisons.
dead. Yeah.
Poisons to keep the weeds out, chemical nutrients derived from, petroleum to increase the yield. And the soil health is always on the decline.
Right.
That's the biggest piece of the system that we're not really taking into account is, yeah, we can put fertilizer on to maintain or improve yield. But for how long until the soil is completely salinated and won't grow anything?
Right. Exactly. And all of this creates runoff. All of this gets into the rivers, it gets into the lakes, it gets
All
into the drinking
downstream.
water. And even if you're eating all organic, if you're, drinking out the tap at any point, I mean, I wouldn't even just put it past drinking. Like, seriously, you bathe in this water. Like, people will drink bottled water all day long and act like the water that they're bathing in is fine. And I don't know the efficacy of like filters. Like, I haven't really done a deep study in it. I have a reverse osmosis filter, but I still don't believe that it's protecting me from everything that could possibly be in the water. It's just asking a lot from a filter.
Yeah,
Like,
and filters clog over time too. So your performance will start at peak when it's a brand new filter and decline over time.
right, exactly. So, and yeah, so that's a really good point. Like, that is a good analogy for the cancer thing. And I think that's kind of like, I don't know exactly what Scott Alexander intended when writing this, because he just talks about it as cancer and those cells growing unchecked. But I don't think that it's very far of a metaphor to see how this relates to all of the other points he just mentioned with agriculture and the Malthusian trap and capitalism. Like, these are the same types of things where you're talking about individual cells growing unchecked at the detriment to everything around them.
Absolutely. Even to tie it back into the Malthusian trap, now that you mention it, this is similar to that rat population on the island. The rats get
The
there,
NIM.
there's plenty of food for everybody. They blow up, the whole population expands rapidly, and then it busts, it collapses, and there's a big die off. In this case, with cancer, you've got cancerous cells operating on their own, I need to get as much food and replicate as much as possible mission, until it completely takes over the host and the host dies. There's one boom and one bust, and it takes the host with it.
Yeah. And I mean, it's essentially, if you think about it, cancer is like turning your own body into a virus, because it's essentially acting as a virus would, replication with no goal in
Just
mind,
replicate.
even to the point that it will kill the host. And that's not in its own best interest to kill the thing keeping it alive. That's just
like
not a good
Moloch in a
idea.
nutshell.
That
is what makes a Moloch trap a Moloch trap. You can't escape. No one individual in the system can opt out because the system is
So
designed
this
to keep
is,
everything flowing.
as above, so below, and the fractals of like the universe in a sense, because like down to the cell, we can't cooperate with ourselves. Like, we have defectors sometimes who will kill us
Yeah.
by utterly just going on its own mission without any cause and cue. And, well, I mean, it gets a cue. It gets a cue from something you put in your body that says, hey, defect. And it's like, yeah, let's do that. But it grows into all of these analogies of, then you go to the whole person who ends up being a defector from their small community, and then the community or the corporation or whatever that ends up being a defector of the entire nation state it's in, and then the nation state, which is a defector of the entire world that it's in. And it's like,
and then you've got the collection of nation states being a defector of the entire biosphere in which we operate.
right? And then if you want to take it way outside the snow globe,
Do it.
then we've got all the other aliens looking at this planet like, man, these guys need to get their shit together or we're not going to say hello because y'all don't know what the
Right.
hell y'all are doing. And we hope you don't get off that planet.
Right? Don't bring that shit out here. We don't need it.
From a God's eye view.
Right. Bunch of aliens up there just humans.
You're doing it wrong.
Right? Whoa.
That's like the astronaut meme. It's like people are going to finally wake up. Man, we're doing it wrong. Always have been.
Always have been, yeah. It's coordination, it's community, and we've been doing it wrong for a long time.
Yep. A couple of other little side notes that I guess I wanted to kind of touch on is it's funny, like cancer is self-defection because in a lot of ways you have other forms of these things, like in the form of like not just self-defection but health in general. So I was thinking of like toxoplasma, which is what you can get from like raw meat and cat poop, and it actually causes like irrational behavior. So like in mice, it will cause the mice to go towards the scent of cat pee, which would be, you know, normally they would smell cat pee and go the other way. But once their brain is invaded with toxoplasma, they will actually go towards the cat pee. So it actually makes them,
because the next life cycle, the next life stage for
involves
that,
the mouse having to get
parasite.
eaten.
It has to be in a feline.
Right. And so
pretty crazy.
Yeah, exactly. So and it gets into people, and within people, it also causes irrational behavior, like road rage. And man, I don't remember. There were some other ones that just like irrational behavior within humans. I don't have that one. I wrote it down, but I didn't put down all the little things it does, and I thought I'd remember. But yeah, just look it up. Like that's one that I thought was interesting.
I'm
curious.
Then
another huge one you can think about is addiction in general, and how like addiction is something that starts off pleasurable and then becomes not pleasurable, but you have to maintain it, and you keep going, you keep doing it despite knowing that it no longer serves you. And
with the fear of, if I stop, here come withdrawal symptoms from that addiction.
Right. And that's the thing, is there's two theories on addiction, or there's probably more than two, but two main theories that I know of are where obviously there's the popular trope of addicts are just people who can't control themselves. They need discipline. They need to like kick it and just like learn to stay off the shit. And then there's the idea that addiction is directly correlated with trauma, and that they're actually coping with a trauma, and that they're actually doing the best thing they can for themselves without having had better ways to deal with the trauma, like therapy or whatever, you know? So they're actually like self-medicating, and this is what gets them through. And for some people, actually maintaining addiction is, they're not actually a detriment to their own life as long as they can like go to work and pay the bills and everything's going on. Like there's that low level tolerance of, yeah, that things are good enough. And so they don't need to quit drinking or smoking weed or whatever the thing is, because they've maintained this level. But in a way that is still self-defection. It is like, you know, like, could you be better cooperating with yourself to better optimize your life? Probably.
yeah, it would open up, you know, additional job opportunities or relationship opportunities or financial opportunities. If addiction problem, we'll just say for this example, if that addiction problem is interfering with those other areas of your life, absolutely.
Yeah. So yeah, those were just some like connections I was thinking about in general. But I mean, like we said, it's cancer. So like I feel like there's not a whole lot that we need to like really preach on here, unless there's like, you know, we could definitely get more into the pharmacological part of it, but I also don't want to get too into the deep end of conspiracies and accusations that we can't back up. I don't research that stuff enough to be like, I will say that like I have no problem saying that the medical industry and the insurance industry surrounding it are definitely corrupt. And I don't see them as altruistic actors. They're looking for a bottom line. And there's enough cases you can look at, like, to prove that. I mean, including, this isn't an accusation. This is true. Like, Bayer had in the 90s released a bunch of tablets that, like, they knew had AIDS in it or HIV. Like, they knew that the tablets contained it and sold them and gave them to people anyway. And a bunch of those people got AIDS or HIV, and they did
Yikes.
it because the recall was more expensive and than the settlement. And so,
Think of the shareholders.
right. So the bottom line is, in a P&L model, like, solving problems isn't always the best solution. Solving problems once is never a good solution. You have to solve them forever.
Right. Don't band-aid it. It's just going to keep bleeding. Cauterize it.
Yeah, no, what I mean is that, like, they literally will just keep selling you bandages rather than cauterizing. We need to keep, we have a forever solution. These band-aids, it's like, well, can we just, like, stop the flow of blood? But then we won't be able to sell band-aids.
No. Yeah. It'll
But
be
yeah,
millennials canceling band-aids. You'll hear it in the news.
so I mean, this is one of those ones that I guess I also don't have a lot of, like, I just don't have a wealth of knowledge, and I don't have a strong opinion, in a sense, because there's a lot of misinformation when it comes to cancer, and there are no clear answers. We still don't really know exactly why this thing happens. We don't
And we
know.
don't know why it can revert.
Right, exactly.
Occasionally, these cells that we thought were permanently mutated, permanently programmed to just replicate, can spontaneously revert back to normal behavior.
Right.
I don't know why yet.
Exactly. So it's just a lot on this, and it's one of these things that, like, I also feel like with a lot of other things, like if we were talking about AI or synthetic biology or something that's, like, a little bit more like sci-fi and coming but not here, I would definitely be more willing to conjecture and just, like, say whatever about, because it's kind of like we're seeing it evolve and it could be anything. And, like, in a lot of ways, like, thinking about from first principles and philosophy, like, where would this affect us? Where does it look like these things would take us is very different to me than, like, speculating on, like, where did cancer come from and why is it, more prevalent now. And, like, it just gets very into that murky territory of, conspiracy theories and, weirdness that.
Or even just speculation.
Yeah.
Speculation because of uncertainties or missing information. They don't always have to be conspiracy theories necessarily, but I see what you're saying.
Yeah. But it's speculation on things that are happening and are real. And I feel like that kind of speculation is borderline misinformation, because
It can be dangerous.
yeah. It would have taken a lot of research for us to, like, dive into the entire, like, pattern of how cancer works in the industry. And to be honest, that's just not what this show's about, is, like,
And it's outside of both of our expertise zones and
yeah.
our focuses. I do feel like this was, in terms of the topics we've had so far for this series, this is the episode that I felt least prepared for, least
Right.
educated.
And I mean, even Alexander,
it really had to be more of an ideological level.
Right. And Alexander, even in his writing, is very much that way, because he's very much saying, like, here's the textbook definition of cancer. And he kind of, like, loosely applied his own ideas to it, in the sense of, like, the cell as defector. But other than the cell as defector, I feel like he mostly just told you how cancer works. And that's about what I know about it, is, like, yes, cancer is
Same.
like cells.
Unchecked growth.
Yeah. Growing
Mutated
unchecked.
cell code. Yeah.
But yeah, the larger analogies, and I guess I'll double click on that one more time, is, like, I do think there is as we've talked about, the Malthusian trap isn't about food anymore, it's about capital. I think that we are experiencing some cancers in our current monetary system where we're seeing capital pool and resources pool and waste going at unchecked, to the point that like there's literally humans or cells of this earthly body that are like dying away while other cells are pocketing and walking away with more money than they could ever spend in 1,000 years. And,
It's a great analogy.
and I think if you think about it in terms of like how illnesses affect the mind, in a way, like it's also an illness that we've accepted this, and that we say, oh yeah, like someone deserves to have that much more money, like that person earned all that money, and that it's okay for that to happen while there's whatever, like 40,000 of people, I think it's 40,000 people a day dying, like not to
From
natural
all causes.
causes, like
Oh,
yeah, like I think there's 40,000 homeless people a day dying, like from poverty.
globally? Just United States? I haven't heard that stat before.
Let me check this out. We can cut this out if I'm wrong.
It's a pretty bummer number. Those are preventable. That's like
All
poverty
right.
is like the most preventable thing.
So this is from the United Nations. Each day, 25,000 people, including more than 10,000 children, die from hunger and related causes. Some 854 million people worldwide are estimated to be undernourished, and high food prices are going to drive that to 100 million in poverty and hunger. So, yes, I'm not
Prices is
exaggerating
one part.
when I say 25,000 people a day die that don't need to, that literally die from malnourishment.
Preventable causes. These
Yes.
are issues with just allocating resources.
Right. And that is arguably like cancer takes all the resources. Cancer literally steals all of your resources and diverts them to unchecked growth and doesn't care. And then that
To no
goes
end. To
right,
no end. The only end is more growth.
right. Until it finally kills the whole thing.
You've taken all the growth. The host is dead. You've consumed the substrate of your.
And I mean, realistically, that's what happens. Like when, we've joked about it before with millennials killed Applebee's and millennials killed, shitty beer, whatever else. Like, yeah, like, well, we don't have money, so we kill everything that we can't buy. Like
There it
that,
is.
when you have all the
Sorry,
money,
we're poor. Yeah.
yeah, like we can't afford anything. So there you go. You win. You have all the money and we will die.
Congratulations, shareholders.
I've done my part.
That's right. At least I know that the CEO that came up with some of these ideas is getting paid millions of dollars a year for such a good idea. I take comfort knowing that they're being rewarded appropriately.
Apparently, they're not happy with their salaries. They're saying that it's not enough. And I've actually heard it said that we need to see unemployment rise to 50% so that workers can understand that they should value their bosses, not the other way around. And this is from Avocado Toast Guy. Same dude. I'm not going to even name him because he doesn't deserve it. But bottom line is, when I saw that on Instagram, I had to repost it for all my friends to see, and I just put a little guillotine emoji over it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, hey, if the grocery prices are rising, we can always eat the rich, right? So.
But cut that out.
Hell no, don't cut that out. That's what you do with cancer, right? You break out the guillotine, you get rid of that shit if possible. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe we'll cut it out, maybe not. Who knows? Any closing thoughts? I kind of think that was it, man. Break out the guillotine. If
That might be it. You see cancer, get rid of it. If
That's
we
it.
are cancer, we need to either fix it or get rid of it.
Oh, I would, you know what, to be on a more positive note, I guess one note I would add that we talked about in agriculture is, you know what, self-sovereignty. I still double click on
Yeah. It
self-sovereignty.
all comes back to that.
Like, you need to have food sovereignty. You need to try to grow your own food. You need to, own chickens or whatever you need to do. Like, you can at least supplement your lifestyle to the point that you're adding healthy things into it. And it's kind of like the more you do, the more you end up doing. You start off just doing one thing, and then more and more snowballs into better and healthier living. So I would say, like, health is wealth. And that's the best thing you can do, is try to not eat fast food. Because also, for me, fast food is also supporting prison labor. And the more you can do to pull your money away from the prison industrial complex and any kind of like indentured servitude or slavery that we have through production in China and other countries, Indonesia, like, I think all of these things are big moves that you can make, and they all lead to your sovereignty, because the less money you're given to those corrupt systems, the more money you have for yourself to do other more constructive things for yourself with. And I understand that it's an impossible feat, and I really do think that, like, everybody doing these things leads to a better world, not just because of your individual footprint, but because of the the changes that you then make to your workplace. Because when you start to become that person, it's really hard to live with the things that you're allowing your corporation to do, and you start to try to like change that corporate culture. And the Moloch trap there is, you might be pushed out because you don't mix anymore, but that's worth it, because eventually
There, yeah.
the world shifts and you want to be part of that change, not like caught up on the tail end of it when everybody makes you do it. Being ahead of that rush is good. And so, yeah, every degree of sovereignty that you can claim for yourself is what avoids, getting caught up in these Moloch traps. And hopefully, if you're eating healthy and living healthy, you're avoiding cancer, and like,
to the best extent that you can, to your capability.
Yeah.
Given our systems.
Right. So, I mean, that's it. I mean, I guess I would say also, like, you want to like get outside and touch grass, but the sun will give you cancer. So
yeah. The grass might too, if it's been sprayed with our poisons.
And I mean, so will the sunscreen if it's like made with poison. So
welcome to our system.
Yay.
Do the best you can.
Do the best you can. Yeah, that's all you can do, But yep, that's what I got for you. Feel good about that? Any closing arguments?
Great about that. No, I think that's a good way to wrap it up.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate everybody watching today's episode of Moloch Traps on Cancer, and we hope you enjoy the series. As always, none of what we say is legal or financial advice, probably not medical or health advice either. So, yeah, we're definitely not doctors. So we encourage listeners to do all of their own research in these areas before making any related decisions. If you find our content informational, educational, and entertaining, and would like to support us, please collect these episodes on Hey, formerly known as Linster, or 18%, where 18% of our proceeds go back to Bankless DAO, and 2% supports Tape, formerly known as LensTube, for hosting our videos, and the rest helps to make From A to Z Productions possible. That was a hard message I got to figure that one out. But so anyway, to stay on top of our weekly series, subscribe to us on the Bankless DAO YouTube, and don't forget to like and comment while you're there. We will see you next time, friends. Peace.